David Avrin, what a treat to have you on the podcast. You're one of the most sought after speakers on customer experience and brand differentiation in the world. You're traveling all over the place when I look at your LinkedIn profile. What a treat to have you here with us today, because I know you're a busy guy.
Yeah, you know what? We're all busy, but it's one of the things I say is we're all kind of slogging it out, trying to make a living, feeding our families. And these are great opportunities to have conversations about what are you doing, what works for you, what wisdom can we impart. And for those who are listening or watching this, you and I connected very recently at the Influence Conference for the National Speakers Association. And you and I did not know each other, but we made a very quick connection and had great conversation. And I appreciate you following up for us to have a conversation to allow other people to listen in and watch as well.
Gosh, I appreciate the humility, and we're all trying to work our you-know-what off to make things happen.
We are.
We're doing our best. And by the way, has anyone told you that I could see you being the voice of God in a movie? Like, you have that voice, man. Have you ever thought of like voice?
You know, I have. I was actually in a high school play. I played the voice of God. Who art thou that thou shalt? Yeah. But that's what they call, that's the VOC or the VOG. The voice of God is what they call the person who announces, at a conference, the main stage session will begin in 5 minutes. Please find your seat. So yeah, I did a lot of voiceover work. I used to do a lot of radio commercials. I did radio when I was in college and things like that. And then you get older and you realize voices like this are a dime a dozen. And if you listen nowadays, like on TV and the announcers, it's not the deep voice anymore. It's kind of like the everyman. It's the, did somebody say McDonald's, kind of a thing. But yeah, it serves me well for what I do in my own podcasts and my on stage speaking and my consulting and everything else as well.
So I wanted to ask you about one of your 5 books. It's not Who You Know, it's Who Knows You, Visibility Marketing, Why Customers Leave, and How to Win Them Back. And David, this is so important because I was just getting a haircut before this because I wanted to look fresh for the big conversation.
You look fresh, bud.
Thank you. And my hair's, the guy who cuts my hair, I was going to say hairstylist, I don't know if that's the right term, but Jeffrey, he won my business because I went to the old guy I used to go to, and he wasn't available. I actually think he might have been hungover from going to we have Austin City Limits, and I think festival, but he wasn't available, and I really wanted a haircut, and he lost my business that day, and it's been almost a year now. And I actually ran into that same the guy who cut my hair, and the reality is, I said, hey, but he lost my business. I don't think I'm ever going back. And there are reasons why we lose customers.
Right.
And in today's world, there's more options than ever before. And what you talk about, customer experience, is paramount. So one question I wanted to ask you is, what are some of the top reasons that we lose customers?
Yeah, well, let me go back a little bit to your example, which I think is a really good one. The main reason that the customers leave, and that was sort of a book I did a couple of books ago, and we'll talk about my current one. Okay. The main reason they leave is because they can, because we can, because we have so many other choices. And the real danger is exactly what you described, which was when you find yourself in a position where you need to seek an outside or an alternative resource. Maybe it was just that day he was not available, and it doesn't mean you were a bad customer. It just means you needed what you needed when you needed it, right? The danger is we find a new resource that we like better. Yeah. You think about, here's the sports analogy. Think about like in the NFL, it's when the quarterback goes down and then the backup gets a chance to step up. And then all of a sudden they get their shot. And if they'd never gotten their shot, you would never know. You look at guys like Steve Young, who came in for Joe Montana. In some cases, they come in, and then when the main quarterback comes back or he heals, they don't put him back in because the other one is doing so well. And sort of that dynamic plays out in business as well. Everybody's good today, Chris. Everybody's good. If you weren't good, you'd be outed really quickly on Yelp or TripAdvisor or Rotten Tomatoes. And so any opening that you give your customers and clients to seek an alternative, there's a really good chance they're going to like that alternative a lot. Because and this is for everybody listening and watching this, most of your competitors are really, really good. There's so many that I talk to and consult, and clients that I consult with, or audience I speak to, they so drink the Kool-Aid. They think that customers have but to realize that they exist and they'll all come flocking to them. Or I'll ask them, what's your competitive advantage? And they'll be like, our reputation speaks for itself. I'm like, that's so lazy. The reality is everybody's good. And then the worst part is those other competitors are mostly really nice people, right? We're all just trying to feed our families. So back to your question. I mean, there is a danger, right, in them looking for an alternative, because they're going to find one pretty easily. The reason why people leave is the reason why we leave, because we're all customers, we're all clients, we're all constituents or patients or whatever the dynamic might be, is if there's something that just, boy, this is going to sound really spoiled, that things that don't go our way, if we feel like we have to wait too long, if we feel like somebody isn't being nice enough or they're not being accommodating. And the reality is most of the things that drive customers away are very manageable from the vendor's perspective, right? We're all competing against Amazon. We're all competing against Uber. So when you get a company will say, yeah, we're not sure when that part's going to be here, or we're not sure when the delivery. And you're like, how are you not sure? Uber, I look at Uber app right now. I know exactly where the car is. They're turning left on this street. They're going to be here in 6 minutes. Here's the driver. Here's their record. Here's their ratings. I mean, there's almost no excuse nowadays. And so it's really tough for small businesses to compete. And people will say all the time, how are we supposed to compete against Amazon? Well, that's the right question, because that's our expectations. So I know it's a long answer to a short question, but there's a variety of reasons that we leave. And anytime that we don't get things the way we want, or the way that we think things really should be, it's pretty easy to look for an alternative. When you're a captive audience, when you're at Disneyland, you'll pay $20 for a hamburger because there's no other choice. You're in the park, right? But in the real world, we stand out on the corner and we look at a dozen other restaurants. So being accommodating is really important.
And tying back to getting my hair cut with Jeffrey, he's very accommodating, to your point. He offers different payment methods. The old place, the reason I left was he wasn't available when I really needed a haircut. I think I might have a date coming up, so I had a compelling event. I needed a haircut. And so there was another person that was more available, but also he would only take cash. And the reality is, and it's today's world, we need to adapt to get more options. So that's just one specific example for a specific type of business. But the idea of enabling options for people to, like, say, do business in the way that they like.
Options is really important. You make a really good point. And here's the other challenge, is that most people in business we're serving multiple generations at the same time, 4 or 5 generations. And you, of course, are far younger than I am, but I've got kids who are all in their 20s. And how they want to pay is different. How they want to communicate is different. How they want to leave feedback is different. And so as a business owner or an entrepreneur, you get to decide what you want to accommodate or what you don't. For example, my son got a ticket on a college campus where he wasn't going to school. And the ticket came to our house. This was just 2 days ago. And I looked on there and they said to mail a check to this. Like, I don't think I've written a check since the Carter administration. It's like, let me check that on my BlackBerry, and why don't you send me a fax for that? And so I called them. They had no way of taking an electronic payment. They had no way of taking a credit card. This is a major Division II university. And they said, well, you can come in to the office and bring in a money order. I'm like, I don't live in that city. This was insane. And to be clear, my son did pay. He Venmo'd me, because he's 22. He Venmo'd me the money. He said, Dad, can you pay this? It's astonishing to me. And so I talk to audiences all the time in organizations, and I say, listen, you have the choice. It's your business. But understand, the more restrictive you are, the more repelling you will be to a certain segment of the population. Doesn't mean that everybody has to take every payment methodology. But if you're doing business today the way you did 20 years ago, think about how much has changed. I mean, how much the way we pay and communicate and complain and deliver, all of it's different. And so it's very difficult, to be clear, for businesses to keep pace. But what's really important is that you understand your customers and clients. What do they prefer? And to some extent, you have to be accommodating, right? Doesn't mean everybody gets what they want every time that they want it. But we better be pretty darn close or better than our competitors, or we're just not going to survive.
So how do we win back a customer that we lost? Because that really intrigues me, and that's in the title of your book. So I'm like, it
Yeah.
could be David, the hairstylist who lost me, but I think I was in B2B technology sales for 10 years, and most recently at cloud services company, we lost a big customer. And part of the issue is they weren't getting the love. The CEO had brought them in himself, that he's running a global company, and there wasn't a dedicated seller. It was the CEO, and he just didn't. There was a gap in the experience and relationship. So another example of why you might lose a customer, but going back to the question, how do you win a customer back?
Yeah. In most cases is the bad news. Most cases you don't. And you don't because they find an alternative. And so the way sometimes they'll win them back is with massive incentives. And it's difficult to do, right? Please give us a second chance. That's why you'll see, and you probably never thought this before, is you're driving down the street and you'll see some retail business with a banner out front that will say under new management. Do you know what that means? It means we used to suck and we're different now.
Yes.
Give us another chance. I mean, that's exactly what it means. It means you probably had bad experience with whoever used to own this location or this franchise or this retail shop, but now we're different. Try us again. And sometimes that works, especially if proximity comes into play and people want to shop closer. But winning people back is difficult, but it certainly can be done. And it depends. If it's more of a transactional kind of relationship, probably not, because it's too easy to find alternatives. If it's relational and you've got somewhat of a history with an organization, you can give them mea culpa. Sorry that we don't know. We apologize that happened. That shouldn't have happened. It was an internal breakdown. Here's what we're going to do now to make sure that doesn't happen again. And that's really for clients that are at risk. An extra set of love, an extra schedule of check-ins, all of those kinds of things to really demonstrate that we're back on track and whatever happened was an anomaly. Because the reality is things happen, and they always do. Transactional relationships are very difficult to win back unless there is already a brand affinity. Like if it's a restaurant that you've loved this, you've been going this place for 20 years, your parents used to take you there and you had a couple of bad experiences, you can survive that. That's why brand is so important. But if it's an online retailer and they screw something up. But the real danger, Chris, is not just losing the customer. The danger is that we, as customers, we all have a bullhorn that reaches around the world. We grew up in business what we used to call guest relations philosophy. And here's how it goes. You've heard this, one of your listeners and viewers have heard this before. It goes like this. The average person with a positive experience will tell 2 or 3 people, right? But somebody with a negative experience will tell 10 people, right? We've all heard that. And the reality is none of it's true anymore. Today, we tell thousands. Today, we tell millions. Today, the ramifications of underperformance, you falling short, you angering a customer, them not getting what the ramifications of that are profound because they can share that online. I had a bad experience with a clothing manufacturer, a screwed up delivery. I shared the whole story a couple of days ago. And I'm not the kind that I don't want to trash the company, but there's a lesson in it, a lesson for my audience, a lesson for the people who hire me to speak or to consult. And to their credit, the CEO actually reached out to me. We had some great interaction. I made sure I gave them credit for how well that they handled that. But the challenge today isn't just about losing a customer, is that somebody gets really angry, they'll tell thousands, right? And of course, the big story that everybody knows is the old United Breaks Guitars. And for those who are unfamiliar with that, just go on YouTube and type in United Breaks Guitars. Somebody had their guitar had been broken, and they couldn't get the kind of service. They couldn't get this figured out. And people kept transferring them. It was so frustrating. The guy ended up going back, writing a song with his country band called United Breaks Guitars. They created a music video, and wow. I think they're over 100 million views at this point.
Oh my gosh.
What do you think that cost United? How much easier would it have been saying, yep, we screwed up, we'll buy you a new guitar, right? Or somebody gets dragged off an airplane.
Wow.
They oversold, and they would have been better off paying that passenger $1 million than dragging him off the plane so that somebody else could have that seat because they overbooked it. And so They're big lessons for organizations. So when customers leave and they leave upset, there's a real danger in that. So part of my lessons and part of my teaching is how do we move upstream? How do we correct some of those problems, smooth out that customer journey? But even in the situations where things are difficult, the question is, I mean, one question I ask audiences all the time is, how easy are you to complain to? Right? Because when I'm trying to think how best I put this, when I'm trying to think of the exact quote, but the point is that when resolution is delayed, problems escalate. When people are hard to reach, problems escalate, and much of what companies need to put in place is an easy way to resolve issues. Sometimes they put a lot of people on the front end, right, on the sales, on the account servicing, but the issue resolution, they'll put a contact form on their website. Just fill out this form, we'll get back to you. Are you kidding me? You got a ticking time bomb there. Resolve issues, talk to people, help them through. I'll see it a lot of time when I travel. I'll see, I saw on a restaurant table once, it said, if something isn't right, don't tell Yelp, tell us. We'll make it right. Right? It's an acknowledgement. Because social proof, that commentary has become the primary driver for customer behavior. It used to be our advertising, clever marketing, clever. Now we're all looking to avoid making a bad decision, so we'll go online. If we're going to see a movie, you're going to go to Rotten Tomatoes. Doesn't mean it's the be all end all decision maker, but it's going to have an influence. You're young, but once you get married and you got kids, and date night is a real treat, is a real premium, and you're going to go try that new restaurant, you're going to go online and look at the reviews, because I don't get out very often. I don't want to screw this up. And I guarantee, for those who are listening and watching, you're going on a trip and you're planning this vacation you've been working on for a year. You're going to TripAdvisor and you're going to see if that hotel has 3 stars or 4 stars or 5 stars. You're going to look at the comments. You're going to look at when the last comments were made, right? It's a different world. And all of that is customer experience. Some of it is customer service, but when I'm online buying something at Amazon, there is no service, but there's an experience, but it's a digital one.
Customer service is everything. And if you don't get it right, your unhappy customer might just make a song about it that gets 100 million views.
There you go.
Telling such a good story to put it in perspective. And by the way, I enjoy following your LinkedIn content. You're putting out great content. And I think you did a hilarious post that resonated with me about what to do if you're stuck with AI and an automated system. And human is the answer to shout expletives.
Yeah, I talk about in my new book. Here's my plug for my new book.
Here.
Ridiculously easy to do business with. You want to do a screenshot? There we go. I talk about it's a how often are we screaming into our phone? Real person, agent. I think you said no, right? And
I do throw a curse word in there sometimes. I can't help it, and I know it does. I don't know,
but it works. And this is a tactic that is unfortunate, but it works. If you find yourself in that loop, please explain better. I just need real person, agent. I can get you an agent, but please take a moment and explain and you find yourself in this loop and you cannot get past it. Shout curse words into the phone. And I know it's horrible, but I promise you it works, because their AI recognizes this is something that's escalated. This is something that's going off the rails. Let me get you to an agent, right? But we shouldn't have to do that. But it works. I'm not sure if it'll work a year from now. They'll figure out something else. But as of now, absolutely it works. It's just unfortunate that you have to go to that level. Here's the big challenge. It's a big challenge with contact centers, call centers, right? It's so difficult to reach a real person now because companies have deployed so much AI and chatbots and digital assistants. And I understand the rationale for it, but some of the deployment has been less than ideal. But it has become so difficult to reach a real person that by the time you do, most people are at a 12 in terms of their anger and frustration. And what's happening to call center representatives, there's already a high turnover. It's sort of 40 something percent attrition rate for call center employees, is that All they're dealing with is angry people all day, furious people. There aren't pedestrian issues anymore. I had an online thing I was trying to deal with yesterday with GoDaddy, which is always a problem. And the person it was a text thing. And he came back and said, I really appreciate how nice you've been about all of this. And I said, well, I assume that you've been deal with angry people all day. And they came back, you have no idea. And I've worked with organizations, and part of their challenge is that their call center agents are taking a level of abuse like they've never seen before, because people are already livid by the time and it could be just a simple issue to resolve, but it borders on cruel what organizations are doing to their call center representatives, call center employees, and some of those are overseas, of course, because general issues are all being relegated to AI, and not well in many cases. A year from now, it'll be much better. 2 years from now, it'll be seamless. But right now, we're still in that transition, that technology that has a lot of promise, but some of the deliverables are less than ideal.
Before we dive into how to be ridiculously easy to do business with, because I do want to deep dive into that.
Sure.
Go back to the other book I mentioned, and you say that it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And I want to make sure the audience understands what does this mean?
This was actually my first book about 15 years ago.
Oh, no way. Okay. Yeah.
No, but it's okay. But the line still works, and it still begs some questions. It's marketing and PR. And so in business, we've all heard, this is sort of one of these contrary to conventional wisdom. We always heard in business, it's all about who you know, right? It's all about your connections. And so the twist on that well-worn phrase was, it's not about who you know, it's who knows you. So in marketing, it's about being well known. It's not about who, you can call somebody up who can make an introduction to somebody, or you can stand on stage in front of 1,000 people and 1,000 people know who you are. So even one of my earliest book there, It's Not Who You Know, It's Who Knows You, was really about that. It was about how do we bolster our visibility in the marketplace. But I made a pretty significant shift in my business almost 10 years ago from marketing to customer experience. And it wasn't because I was chasing whatever was new or what was hot. It was that so much of the traditional marketing work and branding work that I had done and grown up with and taught was no longer effective because we had changed, because the market had changed. And so much of that, as I said before, was about how do you capture somebody's attention? How do you differentiate in the marketplace, which is still the core of good marketing. But the primary driver of that consumer behavior used to be our promotion. And not that promotion is unimportant, still very important, but the primary driver of customer choice today is social proof. And so that's what led to my switch. It led to my research and this wholesale change. I think today, and I would submit that customer experience is the new marketing. It's how is it to do business with you? But I also make a real distinction between customer service and customer experience. Customer service is very important. We've been talking about it for 50 years. I think we know how to be nice to people. But the experience is different. The experience is, what's it like to do business with you? Is it intuitive? Is it frustrating? Is it preferable? Is it maddening? Right? Is it time consuming? We used to line up, and I don't mean to tease you for your age, because I would give anything to be your age again. But we used to line up at the bank on Friday afternoon to go cash our paycheck. And we'd fill out a deposit slip and we'd stand in line, because on the weekends you couldn't get money. We didn't have ATMs. So you had to get money on Friday if you were going to make it through the weekend. You want to get cash. And we'd make it up to the front, and they'd look at you and they'd say, so what are your plans for the weekend? When was the last time you were in a bank? Right? I go speak, and oftentimes it's sort of a direct deposit, but sometimes they hand me a check. And I sit in the back of the Uber and I sign the back, I take a picture of it, and I deposit it. There is no service. There is no customer service, but I have an experience, but it's a digital experience. For me, it's about speed and simplicity and biometrics. So the dynamic has changed. You think about how much of the online purchases or online communication, there is no customer service in that, but there's an absolute customer experience. And so you'll see that the term CX for customer experience, but the other part of that is UX, the user experience. How many times, if you type in your username and your password and you get your password wrong, do you have to type in your username again? Right? That's frustrating. There are teams who are working behind the scenes from a technology perspective, trying to shave a 16th of a second off how fast can you get what you want. And of course, the rise of biometrics. And then there's a challenge now with biometrics. I saw a very interesting interview the other day is what AI is doing to clone humans. Like when I call my bank, I'm at Wells Fargo, and I have to say, my voice is my password. Please verify me. What a great advancement that was 2 years ago, right? I don't have to type in anything. Well, do you know how easy it is for AI to broadcast my voice and get into my account? That's all going to change within the year. All of those things that we think are great conveniences, because we're always, what's the next generation? What's the next generation? And the reality is, for consumers, which is us, it's pretty awesome. I mean, it's a great time to be a customer. The conveniences are like nothing we've ever seen. A lot of it some of it was pre-COVID, but a lot of things post-COVID. But it's really tough to be in business. Because what's next? What do we invest in? As you had mentioned before, for payment options, do we accept everything else? What happens if we don't? And so that's why people like you and I are in business, because we are advising organizations how to do this better, how to guard against that kind of disruption, how to compete against others who are also very good at what they do. So I'm a business junkie. I love this, and the conversation sort of helped to bring out, all the changes.
If you're an SDR or account executive who's fresh in your role and you're trying to get off to a hot start, or a seller who's trying to turn things around and you want to crush your metrics and up level to your next promotion, then consider booking time with me at my Calendly link, linked in the description of this video. Because my Tech Sales Accelerator coaching programs have been helping SDRs and account executives in big tech at Oracle, AWS, Databricks, and in the startup world crush their quota and up level in their career. Book some time and we'll map out a plan to hit your unique tech sales goals. All right, let's get back to the episode.
When we look at being an organization that is ridiculously easy to do business with, you've already given us great insight into what that looks like Wells Fargo, you're able to easily deposit your check, and it's a very quick process. You don't have to go into a building or office to do it. But do you have any other vivid examples, or a story, or even a company that you think is doing a damn good job, just to flesh out what good and ridiculously good really looks like?
Yeah, well, and good and easy aren't always necessarily the same thing. Yeah. Sometimes it's an organization that truly is doing something above and beyond. And you'll see the stories of a hotel where a kid left a teddy bear, and then they'll, FedEx it out, or they'll get it on another plane and somebody will deliver it. And it makes for great social media, but it's not something that's necessarily a policy that's going to roll out to everybody, right? For me, with the new book and with my message, and you see it emblazoned on the wall behind me, and I do a lot of work globally. We've launched the new book in India. We've launched in Australia. We're launching in Dubai, because the message has really resonated, because organizations are looking for what is that opportunity for real differentiation. And what people want is easy. As I travel the world, excuse me, and I talk to, and by the way, listeners don't care if you clear your throat, so you don't have to get rid of that. As I travel, I would ask these CEOs, these leaders. I do a lot of CEO roundtable groups. I say, what do you think your competitive advantage is? And they'll always give me some version. It's our quality, commitment. It's about the people. And I'd say, well, all those are important. Here's what the research shows. Your customers are prioritizing, no surprise, speed of access, speed of information, speed of issue resolution, speed of delivery, simplicity, right? Convenience and choices, right? So who does that well, right? Part of that is transparency into the process. Don't make your customers wonder or worry. Can you go online and see the status of your order? That's part of the customer experience. If your customers are calling you, if you're a professional service provider, for example, and your customers are calling, your clients are calling, asking the status of their case, you're already behind. They shouldn't have to call you and ask, so what are you doing? Where is my stuff? Where is my project? So all that's part of a good experience. So to answer your question, in my mind, probably the best of all of it, from an experience perspective, is Uber. Because Uber, they basically look and say, what are all the points of friction? What are the things that people hate? And they addressed it, right? We don't have to call a number. We don't have to wait and wonder. We can go online and say, here's where I am. Well, it knows where you are. Here's where I want to go. Here's the choices of which kind of a car and the prices that are attached to that. When you choose one, you can see here's the rating. So you know what kind of a car you're looking for. You know what the license plate is. You track them where they are, when they're going to arrive. You know they've been vetted. You see their rating, how many times they've done it. You can choose whether you want conversation or not. You can have all that set in the system. And then you think about the other things that were always a little bit difficult. What happens when you take a cab and the guy double parks and pulls over, right? You got to pull out your wallet. He wants to know, do you want to pay card or cash? You got to run the card. You got to wait for a receipt. Somebody's honking behind. You do Uber and you arrive and you leave. You get out and you say thanks. And it's the lesson, I think, for many in business is walk your customer's journey. What's it like to do business with you from the very beginning? How do they learn about you, and then research and reach out and select and buy and pay and follow up and deliver and leave your review or complaint, whatever that is. Walk that journey. Is it easy? Is it intuitive and simple? Where are the bottlenecks, the points of friction, as we say in the industry, frustration, and what are you doing to actively solve that and resolve that and build that into your business model? You know, for someone to don't spend a lot of time saying, how are we going to handle all our issues? First of all, move upstream and fix the issues, right? All of that, it's business process, it's customer experience. And then I'd mentioned before the CX and the UX, and the last one is EX. That's the employee experience. What's it like to work where you are? Are you overly siloed? Do people have to, or what does it take to get something resolved or to get a requisition filled? And then from the customer side, right? A lot of organizations doing a lot of work to make things really easy for their employees because retention is difficult.
Yes.
But are we doing that at the expense of our customers? Every time I see an organization make something self-serve, in many cases, they're just doing it so that their employees don't have to do it. And I'm like, who's paying the bills here? Right? You go to a doctor's office and they hand you this electronic tablet that you weren't trained on, so the receptionist doesn't have to enter information. Let's give it to the guy who's bleeding from his head. Let's make him do the work. That makes a lot of sense. So yes, there's a lot of humor in my presentation, the things that I do, but it's complicated. As I said, it's tough to be in business. But to answer your question, think about the companies that are ridiculously easy are the ones where it's the fewest steps to get what you want, right? It's not that difficult. You don't have to go through so many steps to make it happen.
I'm glad you brought up Uber as an example, as someone who doesn't have a car and I Uber everywhere. So I give them a lot of my money. And there's a couple examples where they've reduced friction that I can share from my experience. One, I've got an adorable puppy, Bella. There she is. You see
Bella. Hi, Bella.
Good girl. And I sometimes like to bring her with me. And I was doing Lyft before. And there was times where the Lyft riders would actually not take me because I had my dog. But Uber gives an option for Uber Pet. They thought through that. And
nice.
I think that's an example of reducing friction. Another thing,
real quickly also, but you used the operative word, which was option.
Yes, giving our customers options. We're talking about the payment options. That is a great insight. And I noticed when I was at a managed service company in tech sales selling complex solutions, our customers, especially some of the startups that were up and coming, they wanted payment options, which we're going back to that same theme. And there was times where we weren't willing to take a credit card. Now, bigger companies that used to sell for Google Cloud, of course, they had the credit card options. And there is a cost to the company to offer credit card payment options because there's usually a fee. But you got to think through, is that something we're willing to consume as an investment in providing a better experience and winning more customers overall. So,
well, give them choices. And listen, people will pay a premium. Some people can afford a premium. I mean, that's what getting your groceries delivered is. You know, I mean, if you're or Uber Eats or whatever that might be, you can go pick it up yourself, or you can have it delivered. And does it cost a little bit more to have it delivered? Maybe, sure, but give people the choice. It's just a smart way to do business. So often companies will penalize. Like if somebody wants a rush order, well, that's got a huge upcharge or whatever else, right? Let's soak our best customers, you know, or the ones that want to skip the line or skip the process. And in business, we get frustrated because listen, you're supposed to do this and then this. My God, help them skip. Here's the analogy I use. I say nobody wants to stand in line at the buffet if they just want to refill their drink. Let your customers skip to what you call a company right now. Please listen closely as our menu options have changed.
Oh, that one kills me.
You're going to hear 9 things that do. What they should say is, if you want to skip the thing, you can just hit 0 and reach an operator.
Yes.
They put that at the end because they don't want you to call. They don't want you. And I get all that, but that makes life easier for them, but it makes it harder for their customers. And I think it's errant thinking.
And so I got to go back to Uber to give them another shout.
Yeah, go ahead.
Another issue that they've resolved is that when I call an Uber, I'm coming from like this rock festival, I remember, and I called a guy and he wasn't getting there fast enough, and I might have called him to the wrong location, or so there was something that I made a mistake, but it was leading to, I was going to have to eat like a $5 or $6 fee for having to cancel the ride. And I had to eat that cost. And I was just pissed. I was like, I don't want to deal with this. But I went through a process with them in the app of filing like maybe a complaint. And what they do is they automatically refund you, no questions asked. So they have a mechanism. And I was so refreshed. I'm like, oh, you know, where you don't have to like go through this whole process and build a justification. I think they've decided as an organization in those situations, we'll just take care of them.
Well, here's the thing is it's a response to situations like that, because they used to not be easy at all. It was very difficult to cancel, very difficult to try and get your money back. And they get credit for improving, right?
Yes.
That became a point of friction. It's the same thing. I'm a United guy. I'm almost 2 million miles on United. And so often now, because they have really crappy Wi-Fi, I mean, thank God we have it. Yes, first world problems. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But you pay for the Wi-Fi and then 30 seconds later it goes out. And then it says you can go online and file a report and file this. And for $8, you know, and I wonder how much they're hoping 90% of the people won't go through the trouble, right? And so when you make it difficult, it's like making it difficult. There's been legislation around this, and it almost passed, and then they just canceled it, about making it easy to cancel subscriptions, right? That's one of the most frustrating things. These online companies or apps and others make it very difficult to cancel the subscription, and they count on that. You do the subscription, they automatically bill you every year. And so there's legislation coming that will make it as easy to cancel a subscription as it is to sign up for one. Because right now it's very much weighted in favor of the organizations. Once again, all of it comes back to the experience, and is it a point of friction? Is it difficult to do business with you? And in my new book, Ridiculously Easy to Do Business With, I give examples in every chapter about the companies that make it difficult. What is it like? Who's doing a great job? And why there's certain points of friction that companies don't even think about because it makes sense for them. I gave the example the other day. We went out, we just did a celebration for both of my daughters for their birthdays. And they're 31 and 26. But we're at a restaurant and it's a very fancy menu. I couldn't read any of it. I'm an old man. So I had to get my reading glasses. But the reality is most menus are designed by people in their 20s and 30s. Most money spent are by people who are in 50 and above. And there's a disconnect. I can't read business cards. I can't read menus because they're too small, right? But the people designing menus, I don't think they're ever thinking that people can't. They're too small for people to read, right? But it's part of that customer experience. So I kind of had a good time with the book. I think I came up with 24 different points of friction, how to do it better. And the response has been just terrific. The amount of people have written say, oh my gosh, I found myself nodding through the whole book. And I try to make it very conversational, but I try to make it very actionable for people in business. identify points of friction in their customer journey that maybe they hadn't thought about. How do we, I guess this, what's driving your customers away and into the arms of your competitors? And it's one of those things that it's never done, right? Because there's always some new points, and that's what continuous improvement is all about.
Is there anything else you would add around the concept of doing a friction audit, reflecting on your business and getting to a point of understanding where the friction points are? Maybe you could speak to the process of going through it. And if you want any other common points of friction, but you've already covered a good amount.
Yeah, well, I think the action step, is to walk your customer's journey. It's hard to really say to do it with fresh eyes because you're a little too familiar with your own business, right? You created your processes because they work, because they've created a level of predictability and cash flow and customer behavior. The problem is your customers haven't read your employee manual, and they don't know how they're supposed to do business with you. They just know how they want to do business with you, and how they want to do it is changing. And so having that fresh eyes, we used to do secret shoppers, right? 20 years ago, and we'd have somebody come in and they check these certain points. Well, now everybody is their own secret shopper, and you see it on Yelp and TripAdvisor. And so one of the most important things is to, in addition to walking that journey, try and complain, try and call your own company. How long does it take to resolve something? How many times do you get switched? And pretend you don't know how to navigate the system. And then the other one is you've got to monitor the online conversation. You have to set up Google News alerts. You have to check, you have to make sure you're responding to everything on social media. Just because somebody has a problem, it doesn't mean that everybody has a problem, but it also doesn't mean that it's something you should ignore, right? Everybody gets responded to. I do a whole workshop on that kind of issue resolution. What happens when somebody trashes you online? What happens when somebody threatens to trash you online, right? These are very difficult situations. And so oftentimes very unreasonable. And so I always advise, go in and respond and say, I'm so sorry you had this experience. What's it going to take to make this right? And try and take the conversation offline. Everybody sees that you responded. And even if they come back and say something very unreasonable, I want all my money back and I want this free for a year, you're well within your rights to say it's something I can't do. But here's the magic phrase, and this is a great takeaway for everybody listening or watching. Sometimes the answer is no. Right. Customer's not always right. But the customer always has to be treated with respect. Sometimes the answer is no. If you have a vegan restaurant, somebody wants a buffalo burger. Sorry, dude, that's a hard no. Right. But here's the best response. And I learned this years ago in South Africa at a hotel at 5 o'clock in the morning. Even when the answer is no, the answer shouldn't be sorry. The answer is, let me tell you what I can do. Just that. And anything that follows that's helpful. Maybe it's a referral to a trusted partner. Maybe it's another product or service in lieu of what they wanted. Maybe it's a reasonable accommodation. Just train your people. Let me tell you what I can do. And then you're of service at that point, because we get no for a lot of stupid things. But even if somebody does something, your comments bad online, you take it offline saying, what's it going to take to resolve this? And they say, I want this and this. You say, I can't do that. Let me tell you what I can do. I'm willing to do blank and blank. Fall on your sword, friends. Even if you don't make any money on the deal, it's better get them walk away than walk away mad. And say, if I'm willing to do this and this, or refund your money, whatever else, would you agree to take down the negative post? Make it a quid pro quo. And in many cases, they'll say yes. But it's when they feel like they're just getting the door slammed in their face, then they're going to make you pay. And then it's like, you have no idea who I am. You have no idea. It's like, okay, Todd, chill, dude, right? So you give them that. Let me tell you what I can. If I'm willing to do this and this, I'll do this. We'll fall on our sword. Blah blah blah. Would you? If I do this, will you take down the negative review? And oftentimes they will, and then you get something resolved. But so walk the journey, monitor online, respond to everything, but then listen. Get a lot of organizations who do surveys, who do customer feedback, and they don't do anything with it. Back in my day, there was a suggestion box, like in the break room or whatever. And you wonder if anybody even opened it or ever looked at the things that are in there. So monitor what people are saying. listen, maybe there is something that maybe we could be better at that. I think that was the example with Uber, and making it easier to cancel a ride and get that refund for the right reason, instead of trying to navigate at the same time you're trying to rebook a car. So continuous improvement, really important.
Let me know, or let me tell you what we can do is such a great takeaway. We've had a few very actionable nuggets that people can apply, that they can take with them for the rest of their career. And when I was in my last tech sales role, before I went all in on the podcast and trying to become a great speaker like you've become, I had a customer, a Series D SaaS company that was up and coming, and a pretty good sized customer that I'd won over. And the way I won them was doing a balance of trade deal. I'll try not to give too much backstory, but
You're okay, go ahead.
I came up with a creative idea that we would become their partner to help them save money on their Amazon Web Services cloud bill. And we became the reseller. We'd make money from that. And we agreed to invest in their solution, a co-selling solution that would help our sellers be more productive. It's co-selling with Amazon Web Services.
Nice.
And so they bought from us, we agreed to buy from them. And Amazon had a special program where they could actually subsidize that investment for us to make us whole on the back end. So a balance of trade. We did business together. And fast forward a year later, we've done a good job on our side delivering on cost savings, but we were unable to implement their solution. And when it came time for renewal, we weren't going to be able to renew. And there were some technical reasons and financial reasons, but we had made a good effort to try and make it work, and it didn't. And the head of people operations and biz ops was up in arms about it and so upset. She went to our CEO and complained. And as the seller, I said to the boss, our CEO, I'm going to handle this. And I basically applied what you're coaching us to do, where I went in, and when I did listen, and you said that, like, I let her complain, like, we can't afford attrition and you guys didn't follow through. And I let her talk and yell. And I'm sure that felt good. And I made sure that I heard what she had said. But I did have to hold firm. We weren't going to be able to continue to invest in the solution. We couldn't provide what she was looking for. And so after listening, I did affirm that, we really made an effort, but we can't do this. But let me tell you what we can do. And so exactly what you said. And long story short, I ended up brokering some introductions to some of our customers.
Nice.
Might even be better customers for her. We would have been. And so I just wanted to share that story to emphasize what you said is critically important, because, and why did it matter for me? That saved the relationship. And it led to expanded business for a multi-year contract, and working with, we were able to sell other services, and it went from being a customer that we thought we'd lose. So that's the power of what.
Right, and lose in an angry way. And
exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a great example. I mean, part of the point is that's so important is that we that our customers never feel like they're talking to a brick wall. And how often do we all feel that? So frustrating. And they're just like reading their script. I'll call, yeah. I'll talk to somebody, say, here's my issue, whatever. I'll do like some kind of support, customer support on the phone. And they say, I understand, Mr. Avern, how frustrating that must be. I'm like, please don't read the script. I know you have a script there. Listen, here's my issue. We're really struggling with this and this. And they go, yes, Mr. Avern, I understand. And please don't read the script.
Please, because they're not listening to you, right? They're trying to say the right things the way they're told, but they're not. They need to be paying attention.
Well, and that's the training. That's oversight. They're so worried about their people not doing exactly what they want that we call it scripted empathy. Nobody's buying it. I understand, Mr. Bussing, how frustrated that you must be. Nobody thinks that you're really being empathetic. It's that you're reading a script, and so, especially in the age of AI and the growth of chatbots and digital assistants and others, the more we can emphasize the humanity, the happier our customers are going to be. I mean, all the studies are coming out. People prefer talking to a real person to AI. Who's surprised by that? Nobody is. But the allure, I saw something the other day that said there was somebody who's on TikTok or something. They were talking about how many customer service reps can one AI chatbot replace? And they gave a whole bunch of choices. And the answer was over 800. If you're a bean counter at a business, you're COO, that's too alluring to pass up.
Yes.
Right. But I tell companies all the time, I say, listen, I'm not naive. I understand AI chatbots. but understand those are not to be deployed so you don't have to talk to your customers. We deploy those so that you have time to talk to the customers who really need it, right? We can offload pedestrian issues. Just don't make it difficult for everybody. Somebody should be able to ask for a real person and not have to get angrier and angrier or shout expletives in order to do it. But it's all, Chris, right now, it's all a big grand experiment. Companies are figuring out how much they can do. I just heard something online that said, or on TV said that Target was taking out some of their self-checkout because, well, one, theft had grown exponentially. What a shock. But, they think we're going to do this. It'll take the place of people, and the people speak. So they're backtracking on that. We had a Cafe Rio near our home, and they took out people altogether, only in the back, and it was all kiosks. There was no option for a real person. And it's a fairly complicated menu. So it took 3 times as long to order. And I went there with my wife and I said, these guys will be out of business within a year. They were out of business in 7 months. 7 months. They had this brand new flagship store. Now the chain's still there, but this experiment where you didn't even have an option of a real person, no option at all. 7 months, they closed their doors because the people we vote with our feet and we vote with our dollars. And so we're in the midst of all that right now, Chris, of this how much are we willing to put up with? How much can they save? This is good for us internally, but our customers, or do they like it? Are they going to put up with it? And that's why you and I make a living, friend, because we help our clients navigate all of this.
Yeah. What an important conversation to have for anyone, whether we're entrepreneurs like you and I that are speaking and training and coaching. And you really hit home for my coaching business where I'm helping people launch their tech sales careers and being able to deliver a frictionless experience for them and keep them happy. That's the ultimate marketing now is what I'm getting from you.
Yeah.
They're happy customers lead to growth. And one thing we didn't hit on, a quick tangent, is that user generated content. Are you seeing any trends with that where, let's say, one of my clients has a good experience with me and they produce testimonials or even on LinkedIn, positive endorsements and comments. Have you noticed that is
it's all important, but it shifts. A couple of years ago, everybody had to have a blog, and now nobody's reading blogs, right? Now whether it's video or whatever else. This is the old Hansel and Gretel. And I tell clients all the time, leave a tangible trail of wisdom. It's the breadcrumbs that lead back to your business. You need to be findable. That's where Reddit, the name came from. Right? You read it somewhere, right? People who find me, whether they buy my books or they hire me to come in and speak or consult, a good portion of those just stumbled upon me online, or somebody forwarded a post that I did, or an article, or a funny video that I had up on Instagram or TikTok or something else. I'm not saying just throw crap out there, but share wisdom. And social media is different. Don't sell on social media. Share wisdom, but be findable. And so, all of that is really important. Where are we posting? How often? But there's also strategies. There's an algorithm. Post on LinkedIn, but don't post more than 1 time a day, or it's going to cancel the other one, right? Video plays much better on Instagram than it does on LinkedIn. The algorithms favor content over video, right? Facebook hates it if you put any link that's going to take people away from Facebook, and they'll ratchet it down. So just stay on top of the algorithms. But it's part of the process. Share wisdom. Wisdom.
And that's what we're doing here. And so
we are.
That you're taking the time to share your wisdom. This will help people out there, whether they're a founder of a company trying to build a business, an executive who has an established organization, like a sales teams. I'm a seller of 10 years, and I like what you're sharing about reducing friction. We need to reduce friction in the sales experience, because the sales experience has such an impact on whether a company that's working with an even bigger, better competitor comes to you or not. And if you provide that frictionless, smooth, really personalized sales experience, you can win amazing customers from better competitors. So what you're sharing applies to so many people. And I definitely encourage the audience to consider, if you have the opportunity to bring David in to talk to your organization, he's the man. And
I would encourage that as well, Chris. Thank you for that.
Yeah, because you know what? I've been at the National Speakers Association now, the big influence conference, for a few years. I got to see you on stage last year. You blew people away. But that's not just me as an early budding speaker, but people that have been speaking for 20 years. Some of my personal mentors saying that David Averin, that's an example of how you want to be. And so you're
a good man.
You're a true professional. And we've got 5 minutes and 26 seconds. I'll help land the plane. Thank you for the full hour. I just wanted to end with some personal insights from your career journey, because David, we've got a lot of people in this audience who are 20 to 30 somethings looking to build a career, build a good life, make a name for themselves. I don't know if they'll be a top speaker and author like you, but they have different ambitions. So imagine or going back when you were, I'm 32, so we could go around there, 20s, 30s. Where were you at? And I'm just curious to get a couple insights around things that happened in your
career growth. Well, I'll tell you, first of all, between my wife and I, we've got 5 kids who are all 22 to 31. As a matter of fact, my oldest one is 31 today. It's her birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. It's a different world. I'm doing something for a living right now that I didn't even know existed when I was in my 20s.
Yes.
And that kind of reinvention, but nothing replaces hard work, right? I heard a great, maybe it was just a meme or something on Instagram the other day. It said, "Don't learn the tricks of the trade, learn the trade."
Oh,
right? Don't look for the shortcut around the thing, learn the thing. Be good at something. You'll hear all the time, and I think it's nonsense, that follow your passion or do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Just complete crap. We're all working all the time. You can love what you do and you're working. We're not up late going, God, I got to get to bed. I got to be at play tomorrow at 8. It's work, and it's what it is. Now, if you love what you do, that's even better. I love what I do, but this isn't my passion. This is my profession. I'm passionate about it, but I'm passionate about my wife and my kids. I'm passionate about my friends, but this is my work. And so instead of people are just searching for what they're passionate, nobody's passionate about working on an assembly line. Nobody's passionate about commercial insurance. These are good jobs that I think that doing what you really love is something you earn the right to do later in life. When you're younger, work. There's value in that. We spend a third of our life asleep. We miss a third of our life because we're asleep. So that means half our waking life we're at work. Some of the best relationships and friendships and shared accomplishments and how many people meet their spouse, in their place of work or through somebody else. Don't work your day waiting for 5 o'clock so you can have a life. Have your life at work, right? The great conversations and everything else. I'm trying to think who I heard talking about this, but I really liked it. And they said, don't do what you're passionate about. Do what you're good at and spend your time getting really good at it. Whatever it is that you're really good at, get really good at it. Then you'll make some money. Then you'll find a career you can be passionate about. But, if we were all given a choice, I would work out and I would go to the beach and I would have lunch with friends and I would get paid for that. Well, we don't get paid for that, right? Even what I do for a living, I had a career in marketing for 20 plus years. And then I started teaching what I knew. And then I revised how I teach and what I teach. And so everything is a progression. So I say in your 20s, don't be lost. 20s is your time to try everything. And you may find the things that you just can't stand. And that might be people, I tell my kids, I said, in your 20s, go kiss a lot of people, go be a good person, have relationships. You find out what you like, what you don't, what you'll put up with, what you won't, go work somewhere, go get a bad boss for a couple of years. Then you know what you'll never do again. But don't get paralyzed searching. Get on the train. And then if you want to switch tracks and go to a different train, then go do that as well. But there's so much angst among young people about, I'm not doing things that are important. I'm not doing things that really fill my tank. I know I sound like an old person. You earn the right to do that.
Yeah.
You earn the right once you have experience and you have more choices. But in the meantime, there's honor in work, whether you're driving Uber, whether you're creating social content. There is honor in work, and everything will lead to the next thing as well.
That was so great. What a
It
sound.
was great, wasn't it?
Yeah, get
Such a dad. I sound like such a dad. My kids will be rolling their eyes right now.
but I love it. Get on the train, put in the work. Understand that when you're young, you got to put in the work. There's no tricks or shortcuts. Learn your trade. Get good at something you're good at. Like you might naturally be good at it, and that's a sign. But then put in the work to master it. And eventually you earn the opportunity to perhaps be a teacher, be a speaker. You gain more freedom. You get more time to go to the beach, like you said, and have the meals with the friends. But
There's so many resources now to learn. My middle daughter does social media content for a variety of clients for a big company. And I told her, I said, your job is more than your job. Your job is 20 minutes every morning before you go to work, watch something on YouTube and learn. Learn the new algorithm, learn a new editing technique, learn something else. That's all part of getting better. You want to move up in your business, do more than other people do. But today we have so many. You want to learn how to use YouTube? Go on YouTube and watch a video to learn how to use YouTube, right? It's pretty remarkable, and how we learn is shifting, and the resources we have. So I don't mean to belabor the point, but it's a great time to learn and grow and understand that what you're going to do in 20 years probably doesn't even exist right now.
Yeah, you would have never predicted you'd be on podcast.
Get on the train.
So just get on the train, guys. It's going to take you to unpredictable places. David, this was an incredible podcast. You generously shared a ton of wisdom that it's now on us to soak in and execute on. And I just want to wrap up by encouraging the audience to connect with you on LinkedIn. Website, is it davidavern.com?
It's just my name, davidavern.com. And on LinkedIn, it's David Avern. If there are very few followers, then it's not the real me. On Instagram, it's the real David Avern. That's a catfish for another day. But yeah, just look me up. It's David Avern everywhere.
Okay. And any other final calls to action? You gave us so much inspiration. Any final thoughts?
There's nothing else. It is just that. And then subscribe to Chris's podcast. Click the like button, subscribe, and you'll get wisdom every time he decides to deliver it to you. How's that? See, then you're not tied into like every week. So that's my final thing.
David, I'm grateful for our relationship. Thank you for coming on. And to the audience, I respect you guys for showing up. Thank you for being a part of this growing community. Clearly, you're invested in your personal and professional development. And to your success in sales and business and in life, happy selling, happy living, and we'll see you in the next one.